Hi guys, I'm Lauren. I'm that awkward plant girl. Welcome to my channel. The channel of craziness today. Welcome back to where we are all about the planty awesomeness. Thank you for subscribing and coming back for more planty amazingness, planty craziness. Thank you for coming back for the plants. I know you're not here for me because, okay. So let's get into it today. I know it's a different spot. My hair is up. It's nuts today. But I do have some peperomia to repot, and I did want to talk with you about the reasoning for why I am repotting these peperomia. The reason that most people do not repot their peperomia is because peperomia have very fine, very thin roots. And when they have these very thin roots, they don't like to be touched and damaged and messed with. So there are only a few situations in which I would repot them. Regardless of the reasoning for why I am repotting these peperomia, I will always repot my peperomia in terracotta, just because it'll wick away the moisture, basically like a sponge. It'll just soak up that extra water and allow it to evaporate off evenly so that it's evenly moist and evenly dry. And if peperomia sit in water for too long, they will rot. So I do not recommend ceramic or plastic for your peperomia unless they're teeny tiny pots and you can control the watering. But after 2 or 3 inches, you definitely want to go to terracotta if you can, at least in my very humid environment. Okay, so I will be using terracotta pots today. I will also be using a very well draining mix. I'm going to make a separate video for my soil mix. I'll probably put it on Instagram as well. So if you don't follow me there, go ahead, at that awkward plant girl. I'll put it down below in the description like always. What else? Oh, the mix will be a very chunky, well-draining mix. I use a potting mix with bark in it already. It's got very fine bark. Because the peperomia have very fine roots, they need something really good to grip onto. It will also include perlite. It will also include activated charcoal. And it will include worm castings. They are my plant food of choice because who doesn't love a good worm poo, right? All right, so we're going to go downstairs. We're going to go in my bathroom and we're going to repot some of these peperomia. Without further ado, let's get this going because I got lots of stuff to do today and I'm sure you do too. All right, see you in a minute.
Peperomia caperata, Napoleonites. This one needs a repot because it just needs a soil refresh. It's starting to outgrow the pot. You can see all the roots. I would leave it, but the actual top, you can see the leaves are starting to get stuck in the pot just because of so much new growth. I'm not going to mess with the roots too much. I just want to shake off the excess. So make sure that it's not too compacted in there, and then I'm going to give it just a little bit of a bigger pot and place it in a terracotta pot so that it can wick away some of that extra moisture with this dense soil, and hopefully it'll be happier. So there we go. And I'm only going up about ½ an inch bigger, and actually the bottom is smaller. And I am purposefully going to mound this plant, which means I'm going to make sure that the very top where the stems are coming out of the dirt is a little bit above the lip of the pot. It's not ideal for watering. I do plan on bottom watering this, but because it's so dense in there with all of this new growth, I really want to make sure that it doesn't end up accidentally being rotted with water sitting on top of it. The foliage is just too dense for it to be a normal repot. So this is not something I normally recommend. This is just an oddity, a one-time situation to overcome this challenge. And after it grows out a little bit and doesn't have so many of the smaller leaves, then it'll work out better. And I'll be able to mound it down or put it down a little further. So, and here we are. Right, this is Peperomia angulata. It is a trailing peperomia. It desperately needs a repot though because it's got all of this really dense soil, starting to get fungus and mold. And with these trailing peperomia, they have very thin, very shallow root systems. They're not super dense, so I want to get rid of all of this excess. And there's a yucky root there. Rotted root. Yay. Alright, so but let's remove all this excess incredibly dense soil. Otherwise the peperomia is just gonna rot. So it's really just gotta get cleaned up a bit. And with these ones, they are separated. They are a whole bunch of separate plants in one pot. So I'm just gonna divide them out. They are not connected in any way. They were just cuttings that were placed in there and they rooted on their own. That one has quite a bit of roots. And these ones bounce back really easily. They're not as easily damaged as some of the other peperomia. But this just needed to be repotted or they were gonna rot. I am gonna put it in a very airy mixture and you'll see in a little bit that it's just so much happier. So, but trailing peperomia, there are not that many of them, so I really value this one. Alright, there we go. Let me get a terracotta pot. Alright, so with this, because the roots are pretty shallow, I'm going to fill up most of this with this very airy potting mix, and then I will place and arrange the individual peperomia plants on top of the soil, and then we'll add our soil back in. So that way we make sure that they're not too close together, that there is air in between them, especially since some of this dense soil is going to stay on there. But you just want to arrange them how you want them to be beforehand, and then you can add the soil on top to stabilize them. Does that make sense? But you don't want them to be planted too deeply, which is why I added the soil underneath first. And I don't want to get rid of all of the extra dense soil that was on there. The terracotta is going to wick away that extra bit. So it'll be alright. It'll work out. I'm just arranging them, making them all pretty. You don't want to just lump them all in the center or all on the side, just because they'll grow together and then they'll end up getting too intertwined. And with the trailing plant, you kind of want them to be all around the pot, or at least so they're not going to get all super tangled. You don't want to end up with a string of hearts situation with leaves this big. Okay, here we have a mystery Peperomia caperata. It's from Walmart. It's got a couple babies. It's in way too big of a pot. It is already starting to rot, as you can see. It's not going to survive. There's too much soil and too much pot for not enough rootage in this. It is some type of red ripple peperomia, but you know how Walmart labels are, so they just wanted to sell it at the 6-inch price, which was totally worth it, but it's definitely going to need a repot. This surprisingly has a lot of perlite in it. I'm kind of surprised to see the cocoa chips in there, but way too much, way too big of a pot. And messing with these babies' roots, they're not going to make it. They're just not going to make it, but I'll try anyway. So, there we go. You can see there's just a lot of rot in this. It's not too bad overall, though. I am trying to get all of the dense I don't know, Walmart soil always makes me iffy. Like I'm always waiting for bugs to pop out. I don't know. Is that just me? I'm probably just a little crazy. And then with this, I will use a plastic pot because it's a very, very small pot, and I'll be able to control the watering better. It will need some pretty nice bright light, bright indirect light to make this work though. When you tap the side of the pot like that, it will help the soil settle, get rid of any air pockets. When you're working with small pots, you need to do that. It's not as effective with the bigger pots because you have to hit it much harder. All right, let's try to get this other little baby off here. And all of this extra dense soil, it's just so much. And no, peperomia do not like their roots messed with too much. I'm just trying to get rid of this excess because if I leave it on here, it will rot. It's already started to rot, so I want to make sure I get as much of that off as possible. You can see some bits of the leaves up top are all half rotted and whatnot. So I just want to make sure I get as much of the yuck out as possible. It is a little tedious and you have to be very careful. These chunky wood chips they put in here give great aeration, but not enough for the very fine roots of peperomia. So it would just end up holding too much moisture there and end up rotting the roots. So you need something more fine. And let me get this bad boy potted up. I'm actually really excited. I want to see what kind of peperomia this actually ends up being once I get it in a little bit more sun and a little sun stress. It had hints of red when I got it, so it'll be really cool to see what it ends up being. But that's why it needs a repot though. Just too big of a pot. So I'm running out of soil here. But I'll do a separate video for my soil mix for you, so that way it'll be easy. Oh shoot, what's the word? Easy to find for you, easy to go back and reference. So I hate it when it's tossed inside a video and you have to watch the entire video to get it. I'll just make a separate one for you. And then I'll link that in the description and put it in the video here somewhere for you. And I am trying to pat it down. This one I do not want to mound up as much. There you go. Because it's not as dense inside. And I want to be able to pull out any excess rot that happens. This one I'm going to keep a very close eye on. And then plus I want the sun to be able to get to those leaves. But there we go. Alright, and this one is Peperomia orba variegata, or the teardrop peperomia variegated. Sorry, the lighting is crummy. The sun will come out and then sometimes it won't. We're just running off of sunlight here. But with this one, it is in a pot with a wicking system. The soil is too dense. I'm pretty sure a lot of these are root rotted. They don't even have any root system whatsoever, barely any. And I've had these for a while. They should have had more roots by now, and I just kept putting off repotting, and I've just got to suck it up, buttercup, and do it. So, but hopefully in this new soil mix and in the terracotta, it'll be able to grow a bit more. Look at this one. It's just, there's hardly any roots at all on this one. You can see. There we go. Yeah, just hardly any. It probably won't make it. Honestly, a lot of these should probably be put in sphagnum moss and in a spag bag, like a Ziploc bag with sphagnum moss, just as a mini greenhouse to kind of grow a bit more. This one has some roots. This one will be good. So pretty. It's a beautiful plant, and it glitters in the sunlight if you get the opportunity to get it, definitely. So I'm just gonna plop it plop all of these different pieces in this terracotta pot, and we'll see what makes it and we'll see what doesn't. But it is very, very pretty. They do need more sun than a lot of other peperomia. Just to keep that variegation, they can revert a little bit. They'll lose a bit of that variegated. Won't go away completely, it just won't be as much. And same with the Peperomia Cupid, the Peperomia scandens. And just like with the angulata, I am going to, whoops, technical difficulties here. But just like with the Peperomia angulata, I am going to reorganize these in here how I would like them to be. I want them to have individual space close together so they share the same pot, but enough space that their roots are not all intermingled and intertwined. And I want it to look aesthetically pleasing. But that way, if one gets root rot, it's not going to spread to all of them with all of their intermingling roots. Does that make sense? It's just a double protection type of deal. Always plan for the worst and hope for the best, you know? And you just arrange them how you want them in there. Make them look all happy and perky. I love how these look like little tiny trees. Might try to do like a bonsai with one sometime. That'd be kind of cool. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. What do you think? Or have you tried it before? Alright, I'm just going to finish arranging these for you and then you'll get to see what they look like. You can see here we did lose a couple of those cuttings, but overall the plant's doing pretty good. This one is Peperomia obtusifolia variegata, and it's in too small of a pot. It was rescued from a bigger pot. It had root rot. I put it in here so that I could really keep track of the watering, and it needed the extra humidity to build up its roots. You can see it went from hardly any roots at all to quite a bit roots. There's 2 plants in here. The third one had rotted in the original pot. But these are very clearly happy, and they just need a little bit of a bigger pot to, you know, stretch out and enjoy life a bit. So we're going to upgrade them to a terracotta pot, and that'll wick away the extra moisture even though their roots are still small. And they just need a little bit of extra room. Just like the other ones, we'll just arrange them in. Level up. They get to level up to a grown-up peperomia pot now. So exciting. It's always nice when they go from, you know, dying. You lost 1 plant out of the 3, and now they get to actually be potted up in bigger, better pots. When they're in the smaller pots, like they just were, I can't keep up with the watering anymore. They needed watering every single day. Because most of it was actually roots in the pot, so they just need something a little more. I can't keep watering it every single day. But if I had put it in a bigger ceramic pot or a bigger plastic pot, then it would have retained too much moisture and would have rotted these roots all over again and would have put me in the same predicament I was originally. So when we're going to upgrade them, we just need to make sure that we upgrade them in the proper pot for our conditions. If I lived in a dry, arid desert, I might consider a ceramic. But for my very humid environment, these guys are gonna really like the terracotta. Happy plant. Here we go. This poor plant is a Peperomia clusifolia ginny, I believe. And it's got a lot of problems. It needs more sun, its soil is dense, it lost its pinkness, it's gonna lose its roots. This is what happens when you have very, very dense soil. You let it dry out too often, like Peperomia need to be let dry out. But when it's got all of this peat moss in here, it's just gonna be solid as a rock. I'll show you what's gonna happen. You don't wanna do this normally, but let me show you what's gonna happen. So you tear it open, right? And you can get some loose soil away, but look where all the roots is. The roots are rock hard. They're all locked down in this, like almost like cement. So what we're gonna end up having to do is shake off the excess, and then we're gonna soak it. And it's probably gonna take 1 or 2 days. We're gonna soak it in a pot, we're gonna have it full of water, and we're just gonna let it sit there. And after the soil is all, after the soil soaks up all that moisture, then we'll be able to remove that excess soil and repot it in proper soil without damaging the roots. Okay, so that's how you handle that. And this is what it looks like after we do all that. See, it's much happier. Much, much happier. So these guys, I want to pot all 3 of them together is the goal. And you can see that they have the sphagnum moss, but I know that they have soil. I bought them off a Facebook group. The lady was very lovely and nice, and they're clearly happy. You see the inflorescences. I just want to put them all together in one pot because I can't keep up with the watering with all 3. And you can see it's got the soil underneath. What I didn't realize though is that it was originally rooted in sphagnum moss, and the roots did not go down through the soil. So they're all tangled up in the sphagnum moss. I have to let Peperomia dry out, okay, in my very humid environment, otherwise it'll grow mold and bacteria. So the sphagnum moss, I thought was just a top dressing, but it's not. It's actually the material that the plant is rooted in. So in order to fix this situation, I'm going to have to remove as much sphagnum moss as I possibly can, soak it, and then I will have to remove more sphagnum moss, hopefully all of it, and then I will end up having to reroot majority of this plant. It'll die if I basically put it in a terracotta pot right now. So what I'm going to end up having to do is reroot it in soil inside of a greenhouse or a Ziploc bag. I'm going to end up using a Ziploc bag probably. And I'll just have them all root in there together, and that way I can pot them up properly in soil together after their roots have formed enough and it's actual soil roots. There is just too much damage done. And I could leave it like this, but eventually it would have root rot issues or bacterial or fungal issues, and had I known that this was how it was when I first got it, I would have repotted it immediately instead of keeping it like this for a month or 2. So when you pot these things up in soil, definitely make sure you remove the sphagnum moss and then you put it in soil. You can add a top dressing of sphagnum moss if you want to keep the humidity, but don't just root it in sphagnum, leave the sphagnum on there, and then place it in soil. It's not the optimal way, because now I have to rehab all these plants. They're happy plants, they're beautiful plants, but they're all going to need to be rehabbed, and so would your Peperomia as well. With very thin, fine roots like this, it's just not a good idea. And honestly, what I should have done here is soaked all of this beforehand, but I didn't know. So I'm just kind of going, I've got to rehab it anyway, so what's a little bit more roots taken off. But if you were going to do this and you knew that this was the situation ahead of time, I would definitely recommend soaking this for a few hours before you try to remove the sphagnum moss. It'll cause less damage. But really, there's just going to be damage either way, honestly. So that's this situation, and I'll update you. I'm going to fast forward this for you because I have to do this with all of them, and then we'll show you what they're looking like in the next week, a week from now. Okay, we'll update you. There we go. I'll show you what they look like with a weekly update. So you can see here I'm soaking what's left. There's still sphagnum on some of the roots. So I'm just going to plop them all in here. I'll probably leave them in here for about 24 hours to rehydrate and make the roots more pliable and soften the sphagnum. And then I'll get the rest of the sphagnum off and place them in the Ziploc bag with the soil so that they can root in actual soil and I can transplant them together later. Alright, here we are 1 week later and they are much happier. They look good. There was no leaves lost. They've actually grown more roots. Sorry guys, my camera died. But this one had super dense soil and it was another grocery store special. I suspected pests, so I sprayed it all down with an insecticidal soap, rinsed off as much as I could. Didn't see any critters in the roots or anything. It does still have a healthy root system, which is great. So I'm just going to repot it really quick in terracotta. I'll keep an eye out for pests. I'll keep periodically spraying it down. It does have some brown divots or like raised bumps on some of the leaves, which peperomia get when they've been overwatered. It's kind of like a form of guttation from what I understand. But it can also be a sign of pests. So I'm just going to keep really good on top of it. I'll pat all this soil down and tuck that little root in a minute there. Don't worry, he gets taken care of. But this is a fantastic plant. If you're into the Raven ZZ plants and you like how it comes out lime green and gets darker, definitely try this Peperomia. Here we go, all happy. You can see the lime green there, and it's got dark edges all the way around. You can see where it looks like it's got some pest damage, but it's happy. Pushing out new growth. Go, little Peperomia, go!
Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope that helped you a little bit. If you guys have any more questions, drop them in the comments below. As always, more planty awesomeness next week, per usual. Sorry I missed last week. I had some family in town and didn't plan for it appropriately, and I apologize. But no more family coming for a little bit, so shouldn't be a problem again, and I am going to start filming videos in advance now that I have my own planty space. This is all going to change. This is just a mad scramble to put some plants in my planty room, but it's not done yet. And I'm still working on that video. More planty awesomeness to come next week, so definitely go ahead and subscribe, stick around. You want more updates, go ahead, add me on Instagram at @awkwardplantgirl, and go repot some stuff. Enjoy, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!